There are 12 books of choice that the students can read over the summer. There are 6 nonfiction texts and 6 fiction texts, and the students have to read 2 over the summer. They also have got to respond utilizing a double entry journal, and they have to bring that double entry journal with them to class in September, and the teachers administer a mini unit on persuasive writing. One of the very fun things that we did, Valerie Mignon and I went to the 5th grade classes across the district, and we showcased the books for the 5th grade students coming into 6th grade. And it was just a wonderful opportunity for us to meet our incoming middle schoolers. So that was something that was just an amazing celebration. You'll notice we have our pre-academy offerings at the middle school as well. Those offerings are robotics, science research, theater improvisation, Odyssey of the Mind, journalism, speech and debate, public speaking, design and architecture, sculpture, video production, business and stock market, and computer coding. Thank you. The overview of the high school English language arts program looks quite similar to the middle school. It was our intent to make our curriculum fluid so that our students are experiencing the same things in grades 6 through 12. So what we have at the high school level as well is we have a new pacing calendar that consists of the same thing as the middle school, 4 units, 8 weeks long, 2 of the Engage New York modules, and 2 units that the teachers created themselves. We did that curriculum work over the summer also. They have embedded in them a mid-unit and end-unit assessment, and those teachers at the high school are doing the same things at the middle school. We are just sharing data, and we are sharing best practice, and we're really looking at what our students are doing, how they're performing, and how we can inform our instruction. I think that one of the biggest, the positive of our curriculum shift in grades 6 through 12 is the sharing of best practice and really looking at studying the craft of teaching. I think that that is has been so refreshing for the teachers and for the students as well. This is our first year that our junior cohort is taking the Common Core English Regents in June. We are having all of our juniors take the Common Core Regents. We're very excited. One of the things that we have done at the high school level is 2 teachers and myself have attended BOCES Regents workshops and on how to prepare our students for the Regents, and those teachers and myself have turnkeyed that information to the department to prepare our students for that upcoming exam. We offer honors and AP courses. One of the shifts in writing in grades 6 through 12 is a heavy shift to argumentative writing. The students are making claims and they are backing up their claims with textual evidence. I think that it's, we've seen that the students are doing such a great job with formulating a claim, and we can hear claim evidence and analysis throughout grades 6 through 12. I'm in both buildings, and these are common vocabulary and common lingo that we hear amongst not only the teachers but the students. And I think that that is a huge goal, that our curriculum is fluid, grades 6 through 12, and our students are hearing the same things. As I had said, what we did at the middle school was we revamped the summer reading books. What we're doing at the high school, we're doing the same thing this year. We just started a committee, and we are involving the social studies department as well. Some of the things that we would like to embed in our curriculum at the 6 through 12 level is really bringing in other subject areas and really embedding literacy and that common lingo in to the other subject areas. So we have had other subject areas come to us. I was just at the high school the other day, and I had a science teacher approach me and talk about claim and talk about how that is kind of the same as a hypothesis. And so we were having a great conversation just about the lingo that is common amongst the subject areas for our students.
So in terms of ways that our students participate in terms of literacy and English language arts, for our Students, whenever they publish a piece of writing at the end of a unit of study, they have a writing celebration so that their classmates can see what they've done. And in fact, those pattern books, which are the small gold ones that the kindergartners did, Christine and Miss Picarello kind of debated about having the print be conventional and typed out as opposed to having the student writing. And part of the reason they did that was so that it can become part of the classroom library. The interesting thing is they had mentioned, and they talked about it at their presentation at Lilac, is some of the students were like, that's not what I said, that's not my writing, when presented with the printed pages. But it was something that they wrestled with because it's important for the kids to own the writing that they're doing, but also understanding that real writers have editors, real writers have certain things that they need to do, and because it was becoming part of their classroom library, that it was important for them to see that conventional writing in the work that they're reading from their classmates. Students participate in writing contests. We have family literacy nights for our families. We have pick a reading partner instead of parents, as some districts as parents as reading partners, but we pick a reading partner, and some of the photos that are up there are from PARP events at Steele and across the district in conjunction with the PTAs. We've had a lot of celebrations for literacy and reading. At the middle school and high school,
one of the things when I came to Baldwin that was part of the history at the middle school was the Evening of Humanities. In our 8th grade honors class, they celebrate Shakespeare, and they create projects wrapped around their study of Shakespeare. In 7th grade, we are trying something new this year. I know there's some 7th grade teachers that were here this evening. What we are doing is, as I said before, our goal for the department is to start to intertwine the different subject areas. And in 7th grade honors, what the students are working on is really taking that evidence analysis and claim and branching out and really taking it and embedding it into real life. And so the 7th grade honors for Evening of Humanities is the students are creating inventions. So they're having an invention convention. And the students they had to choose a real life problem and find a solution, and they are selling that product. And so they are taking what they have been working on and they are embedding it into something that is tangible for them, and it's kind of a project-based learning activity. We have book clubs at the middle school and high school. One of the things that one of our high school teacher piloted, it's called AIR, and it is an independent reading activity. What she called it was she had the students reading independently at the high school level, and she really wanted to foster independent reading. And so the high school staff said, okay, you're going to be our pilot, you're going to do this. It has been phenomenal. She has worked so hard with the students in reading independently outside of school. She had, and it's in one of those slides, she called it speed booking. And what she had the students do is they sat at tables across it. It was kind of like speed dating, but they speed booked. And so what they did was they they had the librarian at the high school, she actually timed them, and they had to speak to each other about their book, and they had a list of questions that they had to ask. And it was an unbelievable activity, and so that has been ongoing. And the other teachers in the department have come to observe, and it has just been wonderful. I do want to stress that that is one of the things that the teachers have been working so hard at in grades 6 through 12. The sharing of best practice, but also observing each other. That's something that can be uncomfortable for some teachers, but the teachers have really embraced it. And so that's something that we are starting at the 6 through 12 level, and it really lends itself to us talking about the craft of teaching. And so that's something that has been very exciting, and I'm so excited to share that with you. This is our first year that we have participated in the National Shakespeare Competition. We did send a student to New York City, and it was phenomenal to see the students really getting into Shakespearean character and really developing a love for Shakespearean literature. So that was something that we are very proud of our students in undertaking, because that can be quite difficult.
In terms of our progress since the last report, as we mentioned already, that we've aligned curriculum to the Common Core learning standards and done a lot of curriculum work. And as Ms. Reed mentioned, curriculum is a living document. So as we go through the curriculum this year and things that, as teachers teach it, they're going to notice things that work, things that don't work, how they should change it. For example, at the elementary with the writing units of study, we're looking at kinds of what works best throughout the year, and also in light of the state assessment being moved from April to March and the math test being separated out into May next year, then how should we reformat it? What kinds of things do we need the students to do in order to help them throughout the school year? We also have a heavy focus on using data to inform instruction. Listed on the slide are some of the the data tools that we use to assess students. Again, with the writing, one of the things we've worked a lot with the teachers and are still in progress with that is using rubrics to assess the students' writing in terms of on-demand or writing that they do before or after they start a different text type. So if they're beginning narrative writing, then they'll have a period to write a narrative piece the best they think they can, and then the teacher will use it, assess the writing, looking at the rubric to see how the students have done. This helps them inform what they're going to do because they can see what are the students doing well, what kinds of areas do they need support in, and then it guides them as they teach into the unit throughout the course of the weeks that they're studying it. And then they would do another on demand at the end of learning about narrative writing so that they can see the progress that the students have made and know what they've done well with narrative. And all those different text types connect to one another. There's things that you might learn to do in a personal essay that you could also put into an informational piece to make it sound more interesting. And so those skills they use throughout the school year.
One of the things that Michelle and I have been working on with Jimmy Calamaris, the ENL director, is our English language learners. We have met with our co-teachers who are working together to really include our ENL students within the English classes. And it's, as Michelle and I were saying, they're all living documents, so we are continuously meeting together and learning from our students, and that's informing our instruction. One of the things at the middle school level, the Gates McGinnity is a new assessment program that we brought to the middle school, and it's a phenomenal program. It was a paper and pencil, which was a paper and pencil assessment, and all of our students at the middle school level took the assessment. It assessed our students on vocabulary and comprehension, and the data came back with scores for vocabulary and comprehension, and it also came back with student Lexile levels. This is extremely imperative to inform our instruction as we move forward. It allows our teachers to target their instruction and to differentiate their instruction. Knowing a student's Lexile level is so pertinent to figuring out not only the level of text that a student can read independently, but it also provides our students with a list of genre selections that they can read. So a teacher is able to give a student and the student's family selections of text that they can read independently. I think the biggest thing that we would like to foster in the English department is 6 through 12 is that love for independent reading. And so this is one venue that is allowing us to do that and to make that partnership from home and to school.
In terms of moving forward, we're continuing with our professional development opportunities with the teachers, and we'd like to take the opportunity to say thank you to the school board for supporting the professional development that we've had this school year. It's not every district that really invests in having somebody or having people come in multiple times and really work with the teachers, and the teachers have really craved that attention to be able to have somebody help them unpack what they're doing and ask questions and demonstrate lessons for them and really talk to them about what they're doing in the classroom and how they can do that better. You know, as Ms. Reed mentioned, really looking at the craft of teaching, because if they look at their craft and enhance it, that's going to help the students. And so we're very thankful for that. And we've continued to really kind of roll it out in a way, and Dr. Seniak is in conversations with us about how to do that, and we talk at the literacy committee about that, to do it in a way that's best for teachers, because I know as a former classroom teacher that if too much comes too fast, then we close our door. Exactly. We close our door, we hide our face and say, you know what, I'm just going to do what's going on in the four walls of my classroom and nobody else has to know. And actually, we're really fostering a community of collaboration, of teachers talking to one another, of teachers demonstrating lessons for one another. One of the tenets of the Reading Writing Workshop with Teachers College is developing lab sites so that teachers can go in and see what other teachers are doing and looking at what students are doing. So it's not kind of a critical, evaluative kind of thing, but really encouraging and enhancing practice. So we're also working on continuing to develop resources that support best practices, not only within ELA, but across the content areas. At the secondary level, I was a middle school English teacher. We learn a lot about our subjects in college, but we're not learning the nitty-gritty of how to teach kids who struggle with reading in the same way when I did my master's in reading that we learned about how kids struggle, why they struggle, and how you can support them. And so we're looking at ways to develop resources for classroom teachers to use within the content area of ELA and across the content areas so that we can, again, best support the children. In terms of future considerations, we had two questions of things that we need to consider. One of them, as you may know, the State Education Department with the new commissioner is currently reviewing the Common Core Learning Standards. You may not know, I sit on the board of the New York State English Council. I was actually president of the State English Council in 2013, and I'm the conference chair this year. And as part of our meetings, we meet regularly with State Education Department, and they look to us to give feedback from the field about what's going on and their agenda, the Regents Reform agenda that's going on. And so one of the things that they did, as you may know, in November, they posted a survey that they wanted to get feedback from parents and teachers about the standards. They have a content advisory panel which has looked at that data from the survey and then used information from that survey to think about how to move forward. They're currently in the process of calling a committee to review the standards and see where they need to tweak things in light of the data that came forth in the survey. And so in terms of next steps, it's wondering how that's going to impact the standards. Will there be a major change? My prediction is probably a minor change. We may go back to New York State learning standards or something like that, but I think there'll be more like minor tweaks and a major overhaul. But we also have a new company that the State Education Department has contracted for the state assessments. And so what impact will that have on the way the assessments look in their format? And so those are things that we need to consider moving forward. So thank you.
So first I want to thank everybody. I want to commend, first of all, I want to commend Gail on her work at the secondary level. Michelle, you discussed the changes in state ed, and I think it would be unfair to underestimate how changes are made up in Albany and they come down to us and we're actually forced to make sense out of the changes that they're making up there. It is no easy task for what all of you are doing, all of our teachers and our administrators. It is like a moving target. And so the approach that we've taken is to use that as our guidance, but to really think about best practice. What is best for our kids? What is best for learning? We know as educators what that looks like. We make sure that it's aligned with what the state is asking us to do, but our real focus is what does good learning and teaching look like? And let's focus on that, because we believe that if we do that, whatever comes out on those tests will be successful. So I want to commend everybody. I want to thank you. I also want to make the point that although our teachers are being pulled out of classroom for about an hour and a half when they participate in the professional development, I think you'd all agree that the results of that far outweigh that time that you're out of the classroom. And if you can't see our teachers, they're shaking their heads yes. So while there has been some talk about the teachers being pulled out of their classroom, the majority of the time that they're in professional development is really in the classroom. It's not out of the classroom. And the value of learning how to really maximize class time and really professionalize the kind of work that we're doing with kids ultimately ends up with better product for our kids. And I think that's an important point to make. What I have seen excitement on the part of our kids. I have seen excitement on the part of our teachers. And that to me is extraordinarily important. I've seen expectations like none that you've ever seen before. What our kindergarten kids are writing has not been done. And it's not just kindergarten, it's all the way through. So the level of expectations that our teachers have of our kids is significantly different than it's been in the past. And the integration of writing and reading in the sciences and social studies is really just truly remarkable because it's not artificial. When the standards first came out, people said, well, you'll learn science through literacy. Quite honestly, that was lip service. But what's really going on is, in our classrooms, is what it really should look like. So when they are studying ants, and by the way, almost all the ants are dead, is my understanding at this point. So we'll have them, it happens. It's the circle of life, part of science. But the right moment of silence for the ants. But what happened in those classrooms, it was the kids observing the ants. I mean, the way the ants kind of mined through their habitat, and the kids were observing it. They were taking notes on it. They were writing about it. They were so excited to come into school and see where the ants were. When you go into our classrooms, you cannot get away from the excitement. And the last thing that I just want to say is that the work that was spoken about tonight is going on in every single building, in every single grade level in our district. It's not a pilot. It's not happening in one small place. It's happening everywhere. And so the level of writing that you will see and the translation from the writing to the reading really is apparent, I believe, in the classrooms. But it really has taken a lot of work and a lot of courage on the part of our teachers and our administrators to really embrace the practice, because what we ask people to do is something significantly different than what they've been doing in the past. And I know through the student work that we see the benefits of that. I did, by the way, have you in my kudos later for the lilac. So I'm going to. So if you want to hang around a little while, you can do that. But when you get accepted to present at a conference of your peers, that really is quite an accomplishment. The Lilac will get a lot of applications for teachers to present, and they don't accept all of the applications that they get. And our teachers were accepted. And they got a chance to present to their peers, and I had a chance to read some of the commentary. And by the way, I was going to go also, but I thought I would just scare the pants off of you, and I decided not to show up for that reason. But it is really an honor, and the comments were they were nothing but accolades. That people want to come visit our classrooms, and that is, I think, the highest form of compliment, when people want to come and see what we're doing. I promised you we would do that within 3 to 5 years, and we've done it in less than 2. So congratulations. I think the work is just really phenomenal work, and it really shows itself in the products that our kids put forth. So thank you.
You think I would know how to operate the mic by now. Mrs. O'Hagan, did you have any questions or comments for the team?
Only one comment. I heard all of you say over and over again, assessments to inform instruction. What a concept. I'm thrilled to hear that over and over. Thank you. It was wonderful, wonderful presentation.
Mrs. Ribora, you have any comments or questions? Mr. Press?
I hadn't realized that the ant thing was across the spectrum, but I had an opportunity, I had several opportunities this year to read for students, most recently at Steele, in Mrs. Brady's class, where they had not only ants, but a lizard, right?
That is a large lizard.
It was a very large, but when I went in, and the book I read was about ants, it was about bad ants. But as soon as I walked in, the kids were telling me all about the ants and the lizard. I'm sad to hear now that they're dead. I mean, when I went in, I didn't have the heart to tell them that I surround my house with boric acid around this time of year, so I didn't mention that to the kids. But it was great how they were so excited about the ants and the lizard. I'm a little scared if we continue this at Steele, because there's a turtle there too, that it's going to be a petting zoo in the not too distant future.
It already is.
Really? Are they going to get a pony? No pony. Okay, that was all.
Mr. Eska?
Yes, as I was telling you all, I'm such a fan of the writing workshop because I have a third grader and a kindergartner, so I'm always able to see the difference. I just wanted to commend you all again in the committee for the great work that you do. But, Amira is a kindergartner, and she's doing these how-to books, how to bake a cookie, how to comb mommy's hair, how to throw my brother in the garbage. So you guys are doing a great job. But she's doing a how-to every day. So the fact that she's engaged, it just shows that it works. And I really appreciate the great work that you all are doing, because what she's doing in kindergarten now, I'm like, what's going on there? Like, what is going on there? It's such a major expectation. So I have to back off, because now I'm like, okay, she's telling me about transition words. She knows a lot as a kindergartner. So this is great. Thank you.
And to piggyback on what Mrs. Dreska says, oftentimes in education we teach skills in isolation, and kids wonder, well, when am I going to use this? And so it's awesome to see there's been a transference of skills. Mrs. Dreska and I, which I was going to mention on my report later, we accompanied a group of students up to Albany. And so what popped in my mind when Mrs. Reed was speaking about the argumentative, making a claim, and then it was in full effect. So you would be proud to know that the skills that they're learning in the classroom were transferred to a real life situation. So, and also I happened to pop across the hallway after finished reading in Miss Ortiz's class for a part into Miss Brady's class, and the kids were just buzzing. Like, it looks like what a classroom should look like. Kids engaged and excited about what they're doing. I mean, I could even I'm like, I gotta go. I can't even stay and talk to you. I gotta go. The kids were too much. So great job, you guys, and we will continue to do the good work. Thank you. Oh, and I also want to say, like, when I was teaching the pattern books, I used to do this with my kids, and so it's kind of cool to see it coming back. Everything is cyclical in education, but this is really cool that the kids are doing a great job. So thanks again. And if you guys want to leave, you can leave now. Or you can stay. It's up to you. Oh, no. I know you want to. No, because the kids want them back. Yes. Thank you.
Michelle.
Oh, she was trying to keep one. Huh? Let's do that.
So there's a lot going on. I will be brief. First, I want to let you guys know that we are on Instagram now. So if you're not following, you should. We are In a Baldwin Minute on Instagram. So if you're not following me on Instagram, I'll be insulted. I'm up to 57 on Instagram, and we actually last night at Hofstra, one of our students who's in the Global Business Academy was following the manager of the bookstore, And when he had a chance to speak at the dinner, he said, you know, I have to be honest, I thought I'm following the manager of the bookstore. I really have higher aspirations for myself. I plan on working for Goldman Sachs. And so that was my quote in the Instagram. I said, you know, I had a picture of him, and I said, you know, I plan on being an executive for Goldman Sachs. And I have to tell you that the photo and the comment was liked by Goldman Sachs today. I was jumping up and down. Christina was jumping up and down. It felt pretty good. I was commenting on Lilac. Christine Pellegrino and Jessica Piccarello presented Exploring and Creating Pattern Books with Emergent Readers and Writers. And again, the commentary from their colleagues from other school districts was just phenomenal. You know, at this point we have half of a new phone system in. Our elementary schools and district office have transitioned over. Our middle school and high school is next. We had hoped to wait until the summertime, but we're trying to move that time period up. If we do move it up, we will let you know through ConnectEd and through a message on our website. But the phone system is up and running and working really well. I talked about the Shadow Day. We had our 18th Shadow Day at Hofstra University and our 22nd Shadow Day at Mercy Hospital. The opportunities our kids get, I could go on forever, I won't, but really, really phenomenal work. The Challenger Games we had a few weeks ago, I am telling you, if you have never been to our Challenger Games, you must come to the Challenger Games. It will bring a smile to your face and it will warm your heart like nothing you have ever seen before. These are our 811 kids and some of our 15-1 kids who participate in a basketball game against neighboring schools. And the heart that goes in this game, you just really want to get on the court and hug every one of the kids. It is just phenomenal. So if you have not had a chance, when those Challenger Games come around next year, show up because it will make your year, I promise you. Okay.
Okay, so she won't mention it, but I will. As, in addition to warming your heart, what's extremely gratifying is to see the other members of the school community, the basketball team that was just here, cheerleaders, they are cheering for these students, and just the amount, it just, you just, there aren't words for it. It's just phenomenal to see how inclusive, you know, sometimes you go to school districts and the special needs kids are off to the side and nobody pays attention to them and they don't get the support that they should get. That's so not, I mean, they're just like everybody else in the building. It's so cool to see.
Sure, thank you. We had 2 visits to our high school within the last few weeks. Dan Cox, who is the manager of WCWP, which is the CW Post radio station, saw the 2-page Newsday article about our brand new TV studio and sent me an email and was so excited about it that he asked if he could come and visit. So he did. We also had a visit from Jill Lansing, who is the Assistant Vice Chancellor of all of SUNY, State University of New York. She came to see our career academies. She was coming to see us, and she was coming to see East Islip. And she kept, she was on a time schedule, but she stayed so long at our high school because she was so amazed by our students. Every one of our academies was represented by at least 2 of our students, and they just wowed her. So much so that we expect that we'll see more visitors from SUNY because of the how well her visit went and how impressed she was. And after she went to visit East Islip, my understanding was that her comment was, yeah, they were good too. But she was so amazed by our kids. So we also were contacted by Sierra Vista High School in Baldwin Park, California. They saw what's going on at our high school with our TV studio and sent an email to Vinnie Lease to ask lots of questions about how we're doing, what we're doing, because they want to follow in the same direction. So that message is all the way out across the country. One day I was just, my mailbox was overloaded with emails from people forwarding something that really was just tremendous. a website called blog.cruvita.com ranked our high school in the country, #1 in the country, ranked our middle school #3 across the country, and 4 of our 5 elementary schools were ranked in the top 40. So being the cynic that I can be at times, I wondered whether or not this was based on cookies and whether or not if you went on your computer from somewhere else, you know, if you went on from Jericho, if Jericho High School would come up #1. And I was in a meeting with superintendents, and the superintendent from Garden City stopped me and he said, #1. And I said to him, you got that link too? And it came up as Baldwin High School, and sure enough it did. So when you go on the website, it does not mention how they come to that conclusion. My guess is that it's a combination of how well our schools do and the affordability of housing in our community. I don't know that for sure, but I do know that among all the high schools in the country, we were voted #1 in whatever formula they use. So that was good news. College applications, our kids have been accepted to every Ivy League school with the exception of Columbia. We are on our wait list for one of our students in Columbia, but I think that's incredible news for our senior class to have acceptances at every single Ivy League that's out there. I'll go through the student kudos fairly quickly. The Baldwin High School robotics team called Chaos earned a quarterfinal finish in the New York City First Robotics Stronghold Regional Tournament on March 11th. Our high school news and broadcasting class received several awards in the 11th annual Locust Valley Film Festival on March 31st. 3 Baldwin High School teams representing the Global Business Academy and the Future Business Leaders of America competed in the Nassau County Entrepreneurial Challenge, bless you, on April 6th. The teams presented their business plans, and we, among the 6 teams that advanced in the final round, we had a second place prize of $1,250 and an honorable mention. Our high school was the only school to have 6 teams compete in the Northwell Health Spark Challenge in culinary, nutrition, iBank, industrial engineering, public health, radiation, and risk management. The teams presented their posters designed with Photoshop at the challenge, and Brianna Ortiz, representing the culinary nutrition Spark team, won 3rd place with a prize of $1,000. Baldwin High School art student Anjali Mohabir won an Award of Excellence in the 9th Division for her charcoal landscape in the 5th Annual Art in the Heart exhibit. Her artwork is currently on display at Massapequa Mall. As part of the pre-academy program, 5 Baldwin students entered the regional competition of Odyssey of the Mind on March 12th. In Division 2, Problem 4, Stack Attack. Our students were instructed to build balsa wood structures made only of wood and glue that could hold as much weight as possible. Our team placed 2nd in the overall division. And lastly, I want to congratulate Michelle Gallo for receiving her doctorate this past month, and Arlene Guerrero from our high school also for receiving her doctorate. Having gone through it, I can tell you that it is an enormous challenge, and even more so when you're working full-time and you're taking care of a family. So congratulations to Michelle and to Arlene. It's gone a little bit to her head, but we're working on that.
Thank you, Dr. Cami. As it's getting late, we have comments from the board as well, but so I'll keep mine brief and then I'll shoot off to the other members of the board. On the 10th of March, I attended the math fair that they have at the middle school. And last year I went, but I wasn't quite sure what was going on, but this year I had a better handle of what was going on. And the kids did a tremendous job on their projects. I think they also knew a little bit better what they were doing too, so the projects were phenomenal, and they did a really good job. On the 13th, I attended the Long Island Spelling Bee, and so I would like to congratulate all the students who competed in that. That was my student. I also mentioned earlier that Mrs. Dereska and myself, we attended Lobby Day in Albany, and I'm not going to say anything because this is the 4th year we've done it, but I'm going to defer to Mrs. Dereska so she can talk a little. No. I'll let you talk about it. I don't want to steal all the thunder. Let's see. Oh, so we talked about the board members were invited to read a steal for PARP. That was pretty cool too. As you guys see, I have my Seussical hat. Yeah. She's such a killjoy. She's supposed to be, like, at least just have it in front. She's not wearing it. Well, just put it in your office and have it as a memento. I had to change seats because I was sitting in the front row, and I thought I was sitting in a place where, like, the people could see. And so a parent's like, listen, you're going to have to move. I'm like, no, she said, take off your hat. I said, I'm not taking off my hat. So I moved because I wanted to keep on my hat. But the Seussical production was phenomenal. It was bright. It was appropriate. I mean, in terms of for little kids to come to see, I mean, it was just a great production. And we have so much talent in this district from K to 12, and it just was just remarkable. And I'd like to compliment or say thank you to the staff members who attended and or brought their families to attend. I mean, it was the kids, like I've said before, it's very important to the kids to see their teachers out there supporting them. My hat looks behind. And so, oh, and one other thing I just want to mention that on the 6th of April, I had the opportunity to meet with Laura Curran, Eric Mahler, Karen Montalbano, and Gary, I can't remember Gary's last name, of the Historical Society. They're Farkish. They're looking into working on the Kellogg House project that's coming back. And so we met to talk about some possible ideas of what we can do in the community with the Kellogg House. I actually just kind of sat there and listened because I hadn't had an opportunity to discuss it with my board members as to what ideas and Dr. Cami, as to what ideas they may have for our participation in that. But it was a very interesting meeting and conversation. So, and that's all I got. So I'll pass it off to my right, I guess, Mr. Press. And then I'm going to step out for a minute. So after Mr. Press, Mr. Reska, and you guys swing back around.
My wonderful news.
Okay.
This is on. And I'll be brief as well. A number of us, we were at the PTA Council Legislative Forum, which happened a couple of weeks ago. It was a little disappointing that we didn't have actual legislators there. We had their representatives, but I think it's an important event, and I'm hoping that their representatives took back the messages that they heard from those of us in attendance. I was at National History Day at the middle school. I saw some great projects. There was one from one of the students who I think made it to Hofstra with her presentation on it was there was music, there were lights, it was just incredible. It had to do with jazz, and there was just a lot of great presentations like that. I was also at Seussical. I'm going to attack it from a different perspective. The high school musicals here are just phenomenal, and I've said that ad nauseum. I'm sure you're all tired of hearing about Russ is nodding his head, no? And every year when we have those seniors that move on, I always wonder, like, oh my God, are we going to have any more talent coming up to fill those gaps? And after seeing Seussical, I'm not worried. We've got some really great talent at the middle school that's going to come up and fill those spots at the high school. And lastly, I was at the Small Ensembles concert at the high school. For those who don't know, these are the groups that are completely student-run. The students, they get together at people's houses. My daughter's in 2 of these, so I know we're constantly driving her to rehearsal here and there. These kids put the groups together, they run it, and they're just so incredibly talented. If you haven't been to one of the Small Ensemble concerts, definitely make a point to do that, because we've got some great talent and great leadership in those kids who can just take those talents, put them together, and run with it. So that's all I've got.
As Mrs. Reed said, she and I did attend the Lobby Day on March 22nd, and it was my first time going. It was sponsored by BTA, but we met with a lot of assemblymen and senators. But what was great is there were a lot of high school students, as well as middle school students and 2 elementary school students, and they were all prepared. They asked harder questions that we would have asked as adults. They really wanted to know how these legislators would have played a major role in making sure that their programs remained in place for Baldwin. They really represented Baldwin, and that was, for me, more important than anything. And just hearing them speak, they are so ready for the world. I wish I was as ready as these kids were when they were talking. They were prepared. They were very argumentative. And even the legislators were like, whoa, we have a lot of future politicians in the making. So that was phenomenal. Obviously, we were there to talk about state funding and getting our share of state funding, which is, always important, and we need to continue to advocate for that. But this is definitely one event that I don't ever see myself missing because it was that astounding. So it'd be great for more people to participate in that. The more voices that are heard, I think the more impressions that we make. So that's all that I have.
Okay.
I too will make it very short because I was at a lot of the same events that have already been mentioned, but I also attended the Baldwin High School production of Boeing Boeing, and this was the student-directed production, and I'm always very impressed by the, not just the acting ability of the students, but that we had a student director, and they do the performance, the student-directed one, in the cafeteria in like a three-quarter round, which I think is very challenging to stage, and they did an absolutely wonderful job. It was a farce, it was hilarious, and the timing, everything about it was really very, very professional. Let's see, I attended the Spark Challenge that Dr. Cami referred to that was at the Cradle of Aviation, and I made a point of going around and speaking to the students from Baldwin that were presenting, and they were a very impressive group of, and I suppose I shouldn't single out anyone, but I did go up to one table. I know that they are Baldwin seniors. However, they could easily have been 40. And they gave me a lecture on why we need risk management. And it was the most professional and elevated conversation that I've ever had on the subject of risk management. But they were terrific. And the other students, the other tables, really did very challenging projects. There was one on iBanks and how they came to be, and this was all a product of an experience a lot of these students had shadowing at Franklin General Hospital, which specializes in eye surgery. So it was very, very impressive. And I just have to mention in passing that I also read at Steele School for their PARP celebration. It's my favorite thing to do every year, and the kids were absolutely terrific. So that's it for me.
Did you want to go back, Ms.? Yeah, okay. Okay. All right, good. Okay, so we're going to move on to our first comment, our comments, question and comment period. Let's comment. It's our only comment period. It's timed. It's 30 minutes. 3 minutes for total period. 30 minutes for the whole thing. You have 3 minutes to speak. Ask one question. We cannot talk about personnel issues in public, nor can we talk about issues regarding specific students. I've said this, I probably sound like a broken record, but I have to say this in that, we understand that people are passionate about the things that are near and dear to their heart. I am as probably one of the most passionate people you'll meet. But we ask that when you come to the mic, you speak to us with respect, and we will give that back to you. Please state your name and your address so that in the event that we have to get back to you with a response, we can do so. Also, all questions are directed to me, or comments are directed to me. I'm sitting in the hot seat. And if I can't answer the question, then I will direct or send it to the person I think who can best answer the question. And I think that's about it. Okay, so the floor is open. You may come up to the mic.
Hi, my name is Dina Altschuler, Altschuler. I have twins in second grade at Meadow, and I've brought this issue up before. My daughter is in second grade. She's a gifted student, and my question is what is there for her in the elementary school level? I'm hearing fantastic things in the high school level. That would be amazing for when she gets there. But I have a little girl that last year in the classroom was unchallenged. Probably would get 100 on every math test before you even learned any of it. at least a year ahead in reading. And last year I appealed, and I think Dr. Cami helped and picked a better teacher for her this year, who's trying to do her best and is really a great teacher. But my daughter is getting to the point that we need to get her to high school where she can actually do these exciting programs you have. But she's at the point now, she says, can I switch schools? Can I go to another school? I'm not learning anything. She ends up being a classroom helper to other students that are struggling. She pretty much knows everything that is going on already in the classroom. I've sought help on, as far as the principal level and things. I can't get any challenging education as far as math for her. She already knows all the math on the second grade level that you're going to teach her, and gets 100. So I'm looking for what kind of program can we have for a gifted child. And last year I had even suggested, there's obviously my daughter's not the only one. What if you just took all the gifted children and put them into one class somewhere? It wouldn't cost any extra money, and have a teacher that teaches them on, let's say, like she's in second grade now, maybe they taught all the bulk of the classes on a third grade level or on another level where maybe they can do more in-depth science projects and things like that. Like I said, her teacher this year, I can't complain, is phenomenal and doing her best, but she has kids at the bottom, and she has my daughter who's at the top and a few others like her. But we need a gifted program. I don't want to have to move her out of Baldwin schools. It's getting to the point I don't have the money for a gifted and talented school for her, but she hates coming to school because she does not learn anything new, and there really is no challenge. So I want to know what can change within this. You want to get the learners while they're young. I'm a teacher.
Absolutely. Okay.
And she's getting turned off of education already.
So I don't know if I don't want to misspeak, but what I would like to say is to discuss your child-specific situation. I would direct you to maybe set up, if you've already spoken to the principal, then the next person in the chain of command would be, okay. So,
But again, she's not the only kid. There's so many other kids that are bored in the classroom as well.
what I will say at this time, okay, and this is a question that has come up a couple times in the last couple weeks with respect to what are we doing to engage students who are in a different place on the spectrum that are. So what we're working on currently is that we do have it's the Auerbach funds that we're implementing programs, enrichment. We don't like to. Okay.
You and I have spoken. What we are doing is, and I believe that you heard some of it from our teachers who presented, the work that we're doing, particularly with a few of the consultants that are working with our teachers, this is the first year they've been working with our teachers, is that I don't want to call it enrichment because it's not meant to be enrichment. It's really meant to be enrichment for every single kid in the class. It doesn't matter where you fall in that classroom, but the work that they're doing, for example, with the ants, the work that they're doing in the science curriculum and the social studies curriculum, the types of field trips that they're taking. But it's not just field trips, it's the depth that they're going within those field trips. So I think you heard the work that they're doing with the museum at Hofstra.
I know, but there's no challenge in math whatsoever for her. And that's what it comes down to. Her teacher is doing a phenomenal job with the ant project, and then her twin comes home, and like my daughter has gone outside to dig in the dirt for the ants and done all these beautiful things, and told me about why the ants died, by the way. And she knew her head. She's like, there's no queen. They're not going to live. We're basically just going to watch them die. That's what because her teacher is wonderful and just comes home. And my son pretty much did nothing with the ants. I've never heard him mention the ant farm or that he's done anything in the class. And my daughter came home with all kinds of extra work for the ants. But the problem is it's the math. Like I said, she has a phenomenal teacher this year that is taking advantage of those programs that you have. But there's nothing happening on the math front for her. To sit there every day and like the last unit was graphing and you already know it, she's bored to tears.
At this time, I am not prepared to give you, we're
Yeah.
going to have a conversation
But that-
across the board.
I'm just trying to throw the seed out there that something has to change
Okay.
for gifted students, because make them want to come to school. If you want us to stay and be your top students in the high school, give us a reason to stay here in Baldwin. At this point, I'm not seeing it.
Thank you.
Okay, she's got like 3 more years of nothing.
Good evening, Lawrence and Palmer, Delaware Avenue in Freeport. I'm here this evening on behalf of Brookside and some additional Brookside parents. Brookside currently has 2 fourth grade classes, 28 and 29 students. We understand those are the largest class sizes in the elementary school system in Baldwin. That makes a big difference. The specific question is to ask to make sure that our students who are currently in those large classes don't have the same large classes next year. And I understand, at least if the numbers don't change, we will have 3 classes next year, so those students will have smaller class sizes. But from what I understand, if those class sizes change, or if we lose 2 students, our current 4th graders will be in classes of 27 and possibly 28 again. And some of those students are coming from last year's class, 3rd grade, where they were in classes of 27. Now, this makes a big difference. And to make it on a more personal level, my daughter is in the classroom of 29. Her older sister went to the same teacher 3 years ago. And I see the difference in the work. And I think it's directly related to the amount of students in the classroom. My older daughter brought home many more writing projects. And I can only guess or try to understand the teacher trying to address 29 writing assignments. I look at 1, and that's a whole lot. So if she's trying to address 29 and trying to address each student at their level, that is a phenomenal task. And I know the teacher because my daughter, first off, did well, very well. So I think the teachers are doing a phenomenal job, but they need help. We understood, some of the parents understood that at least for the classes that we have this year, that the teachers would have help in the classroom, someone there in the classroom to help them, just because the numbers are so large. It turns out maybe we misunderstood, but that wasn't the case, because currently there's not, it's just a teacher and help sporadically. We understand, at least I'm understanding, that there's actually someone in the school to help, but that person was assigned to another class which needed more help. So my specific question is to ask to make sure that our students, who will be going through at least 2 years of 27 plus, don't have the same issue next year. And if we happen to lose 2 students, again, I'm asking to make sure that they're not in those large class sizes. I understand it's being addressed, but I'm raising it because I think in this case, as a squeaky wheel, we have to make some noise. We have to make some noise because I understand the other schools at this level don't have that issue. And I know it intersects at a very difficult area of the budget and class size policies, but for us and for Brookside going forward, I'm asking you to make sure that our students are not in those large class sizes anymore. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Donna McDougall, 1639 Wilson Street. I just want to thank the administration and the board for finding the funding for the student production of Boeing, because it actually was terrific. But as Mary Jo said, it gives the students a whole different realm to act in and the challenges that brings. And we appreciate the fact that the funding will go for all 3 productions next year. And it gives, as we said, the students from the middle school something to look forward to, but it's just a different venue. And from having a son who's going to be going to college for technical theater, it's a true